Story 1. I went to a party at college and saw a girl I attended high school with. We started catching up on the last 2 years and hung out for a couple of hours. Our conversation shifted to tattoos and piercings. I showed her my Jacob's Ladder tattoo, and she wanted to see it. We went upstairs to an empty room, and I revealed it. She dropped to her knees to examine it closely, just a couple of inches away, and said, "I wonder what it feels like." I replied, "I don't know. I've never been on the receiving end." And then I pulled up my pants. We went back down to the party, and the entire exchange lasted about 3 minutes. Years later, she told me she had been hinting as hard as she could. Story 2. In college, a girl once said, "It's so cold in here. I wish I had someone to cuddle with." I handed her my hoodie and said, "This is pretty warm." She sighed loudly. We never spoke again. Story 3. She asked me to carry her to her room, and I started going over the lore of Sekiro. She eventually ended up being carried to her room by another guy, and I have lived with that regret. Story 4. My junior year of high school was my first and only year at a school in South America. I was shy and always extremely overworked from my job, so I didn't talk much and was generally distant. I had a crush on one girl, though we didn't talk much and had no classes together. Once word got out that I was moving overseas, she suddenly approached me while I rushed to my job, begging me to stay, saying it was such a surprise and that everybody would miss me. I was rushing and so perplexed that I apologized and kept going. Several years later, one of my friends from that year made it clear that she was trying to confess her feelings for me. I was upset, and the experience was a wake-up call to listen to the people in front of me and live in the present. Even later, I bumped into her in New York City, ironically while I rushed to work yet again. This time, I decided to go into work late for this. She was living in Canada and was just visiting, but it brought closure to that chapter. Story 5. The year is 2007. The Iraq War showed there were no weapons of mass destruction. You could get a home loan from Washington Mutual even if you hadn't worked since Y2K. And Rihanna allowed us to stand under her umbrella. It was my senior year of high school, and my part-time coworker at Wetzel's Pretzels and I ran into each other because we took the SAT in the same location that day. She invited me over to her house that night to watch a movie. I arrived at her place around 8 p.m., and she lived in a large house. She opened the door wearing a tank top and yoga pants. This was 2007. Yoga pants were a gift to both men and women. She told me that her entire family, including her 7 siblings, was on vacation, but she stayed behind because of the SAT. So it was just the 2 of us in a giant house meant for 9 people. She invited me to her room so she could change. I closed my eyes because I wanted to be respectful. She changed from yoga pants to shorts and a sports bra. She then suggested we watch the movie in her attic because no one would care if we made a mess. We watched the movie and continued watching. When it ended, she asked if I wanted to stay the night because she was lonely and tired. Halo 3 had come out a week before, and I wanted to go home and play online with my friends, so I decided to leave. We never hung out one-on-one ever again. She's married now, and they have 2 beautiful children. My wife and I are also doing great with an amazing daughter. We ran into each other at Trader Joe's in 2022. Story 6. When I was 11, one of my friends started talking about how romantic the night sky was when we were alone in the park. I did not understand why she would bring that up. Story 7. This one is a bit embarrassing, but looking back, it was pretty obvious. There was this guy I met at a party, and we hit it off right away. We spent most of the night talking, and he kept dropping subtle comments about how we should hang out more or grab a drink sometime, just the 2 of us. Honestly, I didn't think much of it at first. I thought he was just being friendly, but then, as the night went on, he kept getting closer, almost too close for just a friendly conversation. Our shoulders were practically touching, and he was constantly making remarks like, "You have no idea how much fun we'd have if we hung out alone," or, "I bet you'd like my place. It's so cozy," but I just didn't catch it. I thought he was joking or being super chill. Fast forward to the end of the night, and he's about to leave. He finally looks at me and says, "Are you going to kiss me or what?" I froze. The poor guy probably thought I didn't like him, but in reality, I had completely missed every sign he'd been dropping all night. We ended up kissing, and honestly, we laughed about it. I think he was a little annoyed at first, but it worked out, at least for that night. He gave me a teasing, took you long enough, and we hung out again shortly after. So no harm done, but I still cringe thinking about how clueless I was. Story 8. She asked me for a massage in her room and took off her shirt on her 16th birthday after her party. I gave her a nice massage and she fell asleep. I covered her with a blanket and told her parents she was sleeping as I left the house. A few years later, another woman asked for a massage in a similar manner, and I realized what I had missed the first time. Unfortunately, while I was giving her a nice massage, my grandfather came into the room and said it was time to head out for dinner. Story 9. We participated in a group camping trip with my new girlfriend and another girl who knew someone else in the group and was visiting from another state. My girlfriend, now my wife, later told me that the other girl was really interested in me and was trying to get close to me. I had no idea at the time, and to this day I can't picture what she was talking about. My wife explained it to me, but I still can't see it. Just as well. Story 10. I wasn't completely sure she was into me until she asked me out. That was 7 years ago. We're getting married in a couple of months. Story 11. I overheard a girl in high school whisper to her friend that I was a waste of attractiveness. It only then dawned on me that this was why she would always approach me, even though I was a neurotic, antisocial mess. Nothing has changed since. Story 12. When she said, "I'll be right back," and came out of her room wearing only a smile and a foxtail but plug. Story 13. I was at this guy's house, and he started telling me at length about all the various household objects he could accommodate. I'm straight, so it wouldn't have done me much good to acknowledge it at the time, but for around 15 or 20 years, I thought he was just really quirky. Story 14. I was telling my wife about something that happened in high school, and she asked how long I ended up dating the girl in the story. Me? What? Her? Oh my God. Story 15. So, back in community college, I walked into one of my first classes and noticed a girl across the room who I found incredibly beautiful. I jokingly thought about sitting closer to her next time and asking her to be partners on a project. The next day, when I arrived, she was actually sitting next to my usual spot. Throughout the semester, she did things that, in hindsight, might have been her playfully flirtatious. One moment was when we reached a section in the book about addictive personalities. She pointed to it and said, "That's what you are." I was a complete insecure fool, and I will never forget the look of disappointment she gave me when I handed in my final exam and left. All is well now. I am happily married. Story 16. When I was in high school, a girl with noteworthy features sat next to me in biology class. One day, at the end of class, we were waiting for the bell, and I glanced over to see her applying cherry lip gloss. I asked, "Oh hey, is that flavored?" She smiled and leaned towards me, saying, "Sure is. Do you want to taste it?" I responded, "Sure," and took the lip gloss from her hand to try it. 2 years later, we connected a few times, and she playfully teased me about it. I saw her in a fried chicken place a few years ago with her children, so I guess she turned out well. She still has noteworthy features. Story 17. I missed my friend dropping hints about needing a break from work. They kept mentioning feeling overwhelmed, but I didn't connect the dots. Eventually, they took a solo trip to recharge, which worked wonders for them. I felt bad for not noticing sooner, though. Story 18. We were off to a conference at university, and she slept in my bed the night before we had to go. I didn't make a move because I had just broken up with a girlfriend, and a classmate was sleeping on the couch just outside the room. I wasn't sure of her intentions, and she made no indication that she wanted to escalate. I was also a bit of a mess, so I awkwardly slept next to her in my single bed. On the same trip, the next night, she kept asking me to crash with her on her friend's couch, but I ignored it and stayed at a buddy's place to catch up and sleep on an actual bed. The following night at the conference, she told me she hadn't had sex in a long time and needed to have an intimate encounter while we were drunk. I jokingly suggested we run to the bathroom and get to it, and she agreed. I wasn't sure if she was joking, so I stared at her, confused. trying to figure out if she was serious. I brushed it off as a fake gesture, as there was no possible way we could actually do that at this conference. It was a networking event for students in the industry, after all. Later, she asked me to crash with her at her friend's place again, but I opted to stay with my buddy because I didn't understand her fascination with having me sleep on a couch with her. I regretted it the following week when she started sleeping with a friend and hinted that I was dense. She's a great person. We still chat here and there, and she has kids now. I don't regret it per se. I'm sure it would have changed many paths in my life had we been together. Story 19. We were about 13. She was my crush, and during a school camp, I had sneaked into the girls' tent. She asked me if I was cold and invited me to join her in her sleeping bag. No, that's okay. I'm actually sweating a bit. After school, we lost touch. I didn't think about her again until I watched her become a world champion athlete and participate in the Olympics. Story 20. I have been on 5 dates with men, where I kept wondering why they wanted to pay for me. I did not realize that they were dates. They had a classic romantic context, and I did not understand it. These individuals treated me better than the ones I knew I was going on dates with. I hope they found wonderful partners and are happy now, but I simply need people to tell me that it's a date. I'm a bit clueless. For a few of these dates, I only realized a decade later. Story 21. 20 years ago, I was at the pub with some people from my sports club, getting along well with a girl I trained with. As usual, I can only be confident and outgoing if I'm not trying to pick someone up. When I actually try, I get nervous and my brain shuts down. At the end of the evening, she said, "I've got some beers at my place. Want to come and help me finish them off?" I honestly thought she was just being friendly, and I was enjoying her company, so I said, "Sure," and went back to her house. We kept chatting and drinking some beers, and at one point she said, "I'm going to get ready for bed," and undressed down to just a t-shirt. Because I can be oblivious, I just thought, cool. She's pretty casual. After another 20 minutes of hanging out and talking, she said, "Do you usually date very assertive people?" "I guess." "Why?" I asked. "Because I'm not sure how much more obvious I need to be here." Unfortunately, by that point, I had drunk so many beers that I wasn't in a good state, and despite my best efforts, I couldn't step up. We tried again a week later, and things went well, though. If this story makes it sound like she was unattractive and I wasn't really interested, that couldn't be further from the truth. I just can be a bit clueless. Story 22. The following conversation took place outside my regular bar on a late Saturday night, between me and a brunette who had been me all night. Her. "My back is cold. I'm only wearing a thong." Me. "Stand up then." Insert 5 minutes of random small talk here. Her. "My friend is getting off work now, and he's going to give me a ride home. Want to come?" Me. "No. I'm hungry. I'm going to go home and eat." Her. "Come on. I'll make you food." Me. "It's okay. I only live a couple of minutes from here." Her. "Oh, come on." Cue a couple of minutes of back and forth before her friend arrives and she ends up leaving. So yes, I managed to talk myself out of sex that night. How do I know? Because I met her the next weekend, and since she had guessed that I was oblivious, she grabbed me by the scruff of my neck and kissed me, making sure I didn't misunderstand this time. And yes, this time I did get the hint and followed her home. One of the rare occasions where I actually got the hint and didn't have the proverbial penny drop a month later. Story 23. We were at a makeout spot. She used to participate in teen pageants, and I asked her how they kept their swimsuits so tight. She pulled down her pants to reveal a thong and explained that they would spray a sticky substance to hold the swimsuit in place. She playfully imitated the spraying while showing me. I thought it was cool and took her back to the party we had left. Later that night, I saw her kissing another guy. Story 24. I went to hang out while she was babysitting. The child was already in bed and asleep. She put on a movie, one of those dance competition romances. I asked if we could cuddle. She agreed. I asked if we could turn the lights off. She agreed. Then she started talking about how she orders her underwear from the Victoria's Secret catalog. She got up to show me how lacy the panties were by dropping the side of her pants slightly. "I can't see." You turned the lights off. Her fiancé got back from deployment a couple of days later, and they had an accident that apparently the entire neighborhood assumed was mine. I can understand why. Story 25. I once spent the night talking to a girl I had a crush on, sitting on my veranda under a blanket, watching the moon and the stars in the sky. Story 26. I was talking to someone on a dating app, and they messaged me, "I'm flirting with you, by the way." It ended up not working out, but it was funny. Story 27. I was chatting with a woman at a pub and having a great time. Things were going well, and the beers were having an effect on me. She said, "I'm really tired. I think I'd like to go home." So I replied, "Okay. It was really nice to meet you. Have a good sleep." She stormed off and was gone before I realized what I had done. Story 28. When I was younger, I enjoyed watching my older sister play The Sims in her room. After she finished, she would start playing solitaire. I believe she was hinting that she was tired and wanted to be alone. Story 29. I was hanging out with my best friend and her brother, who randomly asked if we could spend time together one day without his sister. I said no because I didn't understand why we would do that. Fast forward many years later, I realized he was trying to get some alone time with me. Story 30. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I was a young pup fresh out of basic training and advanced individual training, and I wound up at my first duty station. The person who was supposed to be training me was a couple of years older, and she was breathtakingly beautiful with striking features. She did everything she could to get my attention. I would turn around in my chair, and there she was right in front of me. She came to my room to ask me to help her move her wall locker. When I arrived, I found her in lingerie, with side ties keeping it closed. As I pushed her wall locker, she accidentally pressed against my hands, and I apologized for the situation. I didn't understand it for years. Story 31. Many years ago, I had a coworker who, at least in my mind, was far out of my league in multiple ways. There were several instances where, in retrospect, I am reasonably sure she was dropping hints. However, because I believed she was so far beyond my reach, it never even remotely crossed my mind that she might have been interested in me. Story 32. He sent me a screenshot of our text so I could see an emoji because my phone wasn't updated yet. There was a heart next to my contact name. He awkwardly freaked out when I showed him a photo of myself, which was out of character for him. He said, "I love you every day." He handwritten letters telling me how much I meant to him and that he couldn't wait to live together, own cats, and map out constellations on the window above our kitchen sink. I had a big crush on him too. We're dating now. Story 33. Leaving a swingers club to go to an after party. An exotic dancer approached me and kept saying she wished she had someone to go with. I thought she needed a ride. She was clearly disappointed that I kept missing the point. I kept asking if she needed a ride, and she kept saying no, she just wanted to go home with someone. I was clueless. Story 34. She joked that if she saw me now, she'd kiss me. She said I'd send you pictures to prove I am not fat under these clothes. We talked about how good I looked, and she expressed her love for me. I said thank you for everything and thought she was either joking or being nice. Years later, he finally understood and came to a conclusion. She probably wasn't joking. Story 35. A girl stumbled on the table and got hazelnut cream on her arm. She asked me to lick it, but I said no, thinking she was making fun of me. It's important to note that she was very friendly and affectionate with me the whole evening, even sitting on my lap. I then stood up and offered her my seat, thinking she just wanted a place to sit. I wasn't a very smart kid and was used to being made fun of, so I felt less bad about it, but still bad. I realized what happened the day after. I messaged her on Facebook to try and salvage anything that could be salvaged. We texted for about 15 to 20 messages, and then I never heard from her again. Story 36. I was texting a friend around Valentine's Day. We were playing one of those pool minigames, which required you to input a dare before each game. We didn't care for it, so we would just randomly pick an option and ignore the rest. She picked loser has to ask the winner out on a date. Lost and asked if I wanted to go to the mall. Sure, the mall is fun. She complained about being single and we got frozen yogurt. She bought me a stuffed animal. an octopus with a heart on it. She said, haha, this is kind of like how that minigame said we were supposed to go on a date. And I replied, LOL, yep, didn't think about that. We fell out of contact. Story 37. I was experiencing neck pain and told a girl I had a crush on. She offered to give me a massage, but I declined, saying, no thanks, I don't trust you. I still react with anger when I think about it. Story 38. We were coworkers and had received some comments from the managers about our obvious flirting at work, even with customers around. A few days before I was set to move to another city, she invited me to her house since her parents weren't home to help her rearrange her bedroom. We exchanged pictures on Snapchat, and she was clearly not wearing a shirt. I responded, yeah, maybe I know another coworker is having a little gathering later, so I might go over there. A few days later, I moved, and we barely spoke after that. As far as I know, she is in a happy relationship, so good for her. Story 39. I'm bisexual, and I've had a few lesbian and bisexual girls interested in me. We have a different way of flirting, apparently, and I'm often oblivious to it. Story 40, her birthday. A night out drinking in the city leads to her suggesting we return to her hotel room. It's 2 a.m., and we find ourselves together in the dark, holding each other closely. I say, I think it's time for me to leave, and I take a cab home. Men have faced severe consequences for much less. Story 41. She was genuinely flirting, and I initially brushed it off as flattery. It happened daily, to the point where my classmates accused her of sexual harassment. I think she was waiting for me to make a move, but I eventually dropped that class for unrelated reasons, and there was never really a good time to talk to her again. Story 42. I became really friendly with a girl in high school. One night, while we were hanging out, she sat on the couch next to me and applied a lip gloss that smelled wonderful. I told her I liked the scent, and she suggested that I should taste it. I politely declined. Story 43. I was invited to a woman's house for tea at 11 p.m. after she had been accidentally brushing up against me all afternoon and asked if I was single. Her friends kept looking at me and giggling. I declined, explaining that I didn't want to be up late and went home. Yes, literally like George Costanza. Story 44. In college, I was chatting with a girl at a house party. At some point in the conversation, she said, it's kind of loud. Would you want to go to another room where it's a little quieter? I immediately replied, no, that's okay. I'm having fun here. It turns out I probably could have had much more fun in the quieter room. Story 45. A longtime friend came over. We shared a joint, slept in my bed, and in the morning she asked, so why haven't we had sex yet? I didn't realize she was giving me a clear opportunity, so I provided a lengthy response about friendship instead of one of the many better responses I have thought of since then. She moved to Germany. Story 46. Neither of us dropped hints, but on our first date, I intended to go in for a cuddle. He misread the situation and thought I was going to kiss him, so I went along with it. We have now been very happily married for 3 years. Story 47. I was friends with a guy back in high school for a couple of months, and he told me to my face that I was exactly his type. I kind of ignored it, but I also thought it was interesting information about him. Only years after we dated and eventually broke up did I realize that he was dropping hints in that moment. Story 48. When I was a child, there was a woman who wanted me to visit her apartment alone, but I felt too much like a foolish nerd. Story 49. This girl and I were wasting time hanging out after the laboratory. She asked me what I was doing after I said I was probably getting lunch before going to work. So we went to get lunch at a place where my friend was working at the bar. My friend encouraged me to go for it. I thought my classmate was just being nice, but she was apparently flirting. We ended up moving in together for a while, but unfortunately it didn't work out. Story 50. Before I got glasses, I was a wallflower at a nightclub watching a beautiful girl dance as she slowly waved her fingers at me. On the way home, my friend said, she was beckoning you to come dance with her. Story 51. I used to spend time in the park with my friend often. After about 2 years, I learned that she viewed it as dates. Story 52. I wasn't in college, but most of my friends were, and we routinely hung out as a group with various people because we all had different friends. One day, this girl must have gotten bored and asked if someone would come hang out at her place. I agreed. She drove, and I seriously thought she just wanted to hang out without 6 or 7 people around because, honestly, it was annoying to me. I was prepared to watch her DVDs or whatever, and she was really cute too. I'm not a smart man. Story 53. The girl asked for my number, playfully saying that she would call me at around midnight. I brushed her off, saying I would be asleep at that time. Since then, she stopped trying to flirt with me. Story 54. I like this girl I worked with in high school a lot. I was trying to work up the courage to ask her out but was too scared. We were on our lunch break together, and it was a week before the first release of the new Star Wars movies. We got to talking about how we both love Star Wars, and she said, "Yeah, I'd love to go with someone, but none of my friends really like Star Wars." I looked at her and replied, "That's unfortunate." Then we went back to work. I nearly hit my steering wheel after work when I realized what I had missed. I ended up asking her out later over text, and now she's my wife of 7 years. Story 55. A high school classmate was eagerly chatting with me when I was in medical school. She even suggested we should hang out sometime. However, my academic load was heavy, and I didn't realize she might be interested in me. I only thought she was friendly. Fast forward, I picked up on the hints and tried to make my move, but to no avail. I think she's happy being single up until this point. Meanwhile, for 4 years I've been with the sweetest girl in the world. I believe we're both happy in our own lives, but upon seeing this post, I suddenly realized what could have been. Story 56. In high school, one of my friends would take me to her room and lock the door. We would hang out for an hour and then I would say, "I have to go," and leave. This went on for a couple of months, which I realized many years later. Story 57. Oh brother, it's a long story. A girl from my younger brother's grade used to like me. She teased me and sent her friends to gather information about me, like what music I liked. I caught on, but she was in 6th grade and I was in 9th or 10th grade. I wasn't interested in anything inappropriate, so I never made a move or reciprocated. I was traveling a long distance with my family, and this girl was sitting in the seat in front of me. We both felt attraction and tension, but I didn't make a move because some paramilitary officers were seated next to us. If I had made a move and she felt uncomfortable, it wouldn't have ended well for me. Anyway, night came and around 2 a.m., I wanted to use the bathroom. I woke up and saw that girl sitting straight up and staring at me the whole time. I didn't go to the bathroom and just prayed not to wet the bed. The next morning, only the two of us were awake, and we began talking. To keep in contact, she snatched my mother's phone that I was using. I was 15 at the time in 10th grade and didn't have my own phone, plus it was 2019. Logged into her Facebook account, searched for me, sent me a friend request, and offered me a light snack. Both of our families played board games after they woke up. I couldn't accept her request right away, and when I did, she went off, saying, "You don't want to talk to me." It could have been a long-distance relationship, but we fell off during the talking stage, either due to my bad texting skills or because, as she told me, her parents would scold her if they found her on social media. Eventually, she deleted her account. In 11th grade, my friend played a prank on me. He went up to a cute girl he knew and told her that I liked her, which wasn't true, but she was really pretty. This girl followed me everywhere, waited outside my bus at school, and came to watch me play football during lunchtime. I thought it was a prank until one day, her classmates dragged me out of my class and threatened to break my legs if I didn't talk to her. They showed up with canes and sticks. So, I had to talk to her and explain that I was focused on my studies and couldn't be in a relationship at that time. She understood quickly. Another reason for my rejection was that my crush, who was her best friend, often told me that this girl wasn't good for me. Years later, I asked my friend if she truly liked me or if it was just a cruel prank, and he said that she genuinely liked me. Last year, while coming back from the hospital, I ran into my crush and her best friend. We began talking, and they straight up told me that they knew I liked her. When I asked whom they liked, they took my name. Turns out my crush had planned to ask me out in 10th grade but couldn't because she, in her own words, was a mess at the time. Additionally, her best friend also liked me, so if I had said yes to either of them, their friendship would have been destroyed. They are still best friends to this day. They asked for my number and that was it. I fumbled the opportunity as usual. If you are wondering, I am from India, so some things might be different from your surroundings. I am now 22. Story 58. I was the one dropping hints. I brought her a chocolate bar every day, got her coffee before we met up, and told her I was interested in her. She missed it all and is still shocked that I wasn't joking about my feelings. Story 59. In 8th grade, I was good friends with a girl. One day on social media, she posted, "Today's Man Crush Monday is Gussie just because you always know how to make me smile and you're a terrific person in every way. You've never given me a single reason not to trust you. You're a trustworthy person. You care about everyone and always give me piggyback rides. You have the biggest smile after you say the funniest things, and I love it more than you could imagine. Keep being you, Gussie, because you're amazing." I liked it, saw her the next day, and told her what a great friend she was. I didn't understand why she didn't want to talk to me for a few days after that. Looking back as an adult, I realize I picked up on hints about as well as a brick. Still just about as smart as one too. Story 60. She had been a friend for a few years. She grabbed my arm twice in quick succession and made a honking noise. I found it hilarious at the time and never realized it until several years later when she mentioned it. I tried to explain that since we had been friends for so long, I never thought of it as being sexual in nature. We were just making each other laugh as usual. There are other situations that were obviously inappropriate with different people, but I would rather not relive them since I need to sleep soon. Story 61. I had been talking with this guy for a couple of days. He called me Lovely as a pet name, and I said, "Thank you," continuing the conversation. I didn't realize he was flirting with me until 2 weeks later when he asked me out. We're exes now and don't have contact, but the relationship was amazing while it lasted. Story 62. In my first year at university, I started spending time with a young lady from Austria. We chatted, swapped lecture notes, and sometimes went to my room on campus to talk and enjoy tea and biscuits. We would take walks to the scenic gardens on campus. And at one point, we planned to become camp counselors in France for the summer, which sounded like an exciting adventure. Our time together came to a close when I mentioned one day in the garden that I had finally gotten together with a girl named Lisa. I had been open about my interest in Lisa while spending time with the Austrian beauty, so I was a bit surprised when we parted that day to see a hurt, forlorn look on her face, as if she had received upsetting news. I didn't think much of it at the time. It was only years later, while writing, that I suddenly realized Brigitta had been attracted to me. The twist is that the summer holidays began shortly after Lisa and I started dating. We were apart for just 10 weeks. While I was back home, another young lady expressed interest in me, but I chose to be loyal to my girlfriend. After all, I was committed, right? Well, after holding out for Lisa, she ended up breaking up with me the next time we met, right at the end of those summer holidays. I had done the honorable thing by staying faithful, and in the end, I found myself alone. If I could turn back time, I would ask Brigitta out and forget all about Lisa. At one point, I had her interested and failed to realize it until it was far too late. Story 63. I had a friend actively in labor next to me, hunched over an ottoman, heavy breathing, and I was oblivious, guessing the baby wasn't due for another week. It's been over a decade, and I still get teased about it. Story 64. A lady customer I chat with when she comes and started telling me that she doesn't remember having intimate relations with her husband. She said they haven't been together long. I think she is interested in some external involvement, but I could never do that to my wife. Story 65. I have this girl best friend, and she is close with her male cousin. I hang out with her and I'm fine with this cousin. He is chill, older, mature, and never crosses the line. I see him as a brother. We gossip about our crushes, and I knew about his crush. Before, he would tie my shoelaces for me, hold my bag, pay for me, and always sit next to me. I never really thought anything of it until one day my best friend told me his crush had changed. I kept asking who his crush was now, and they said they would tell me at the park downstairs. So I agreed to go. What happened next surprised me. He said he liked me, and I said I liked him too, but I didn't realize he meant, I love you. I thought he meant, I like you, bro. But he meant, I love you. Now, I guess we are dating. Story 66. A girl I used to work with and I were sharing pictures of our cats. She commented on how cute my cat was and said that he must take after his dad. Story 67. My friends say I fumbled because a girl sat next to me on the bus. For some reason, I let her use my phone to unlock it, and she opened my friend's snaps and replied to them. She also played games on my phone. When I moved to a different part of the bus to hang out with other friends, she followed me. I'm still unsure if that was a fumble or if she was just being friendly. I didn't think much of it at the time. I don't really care. But if she was trying to drop hints, maybe that means I'm not totally hopeless, right? Story 68. We were drinking with friends during our college trip when she asked me to join her in her room to get an extra bottle. She offered me a drink in her room, and we talked for a while. Innocently, I suggested, let's go downstairs. They're waiting for us. At the end of college, she told me she had a crush on me. Story 69. There was an acquaintance I thought was cute, but I didn't think he could possibly like me. I was looking at Facebook memories and saw all the times he had commented on my posts, and I realized he probably did like me. Several years later, he looked me up on LinkedIn. We are nowhere near the same field, so now I know he was interested. Story 70. While at a social event, a girl who was clearly flirting with me sat down on my lap. I did not make the connection at the time. Story 71. The same thing happened in high school and university. A guy gently placed both his hands on my shoulders from behind to push me aside. I struggled to describe it, but when I looked back, we made undeniable eye contact. I didn't react right away. I even smiled back later. I liked both guys, but I was simply too clueless to understand the cues. Story 72. I once missed subtle hints about someone wanting to spend more time together and only realized when they directly asked. It was awkward, but it turned out fine. Story 73. I missed every hint that I wasn't welcome in the friend group, and one of them had to pull me aside and say it to my face. I stopped talking to them, and they continued not talking to me. Story 74. My favorite memory is from when I was in Sydney on a work trip at around 25 years old. I met someone on the shuttle bus returning from the convention center to our hotel. We started talking and ended up chatting for hours in the lobby afterward. I should mention that during our conversation, she shared what floor and room she was staying in. After a long and enjoyable chat, we agreed it was getting late and we should head out. For some reason, I don't even remember why, I had something to finish before leaving, so I stayed at the coffee table we had occupied all night. It was only after she had left and was already out of sight near the elevators that I realized she had left a room card on the table. Oh no, that's odd, I thought. So what did I do? The right thing, of course. I approached the staff at the front desk, a guy who had been there most of the night and had obviously observed our interaction, and said, "Hey, I think she forgot this. Can you return it to her for me? Thanks." I didn't quite understand why he was giving me a strange look, as if I had just kicked a kitten. I don't think I figured it out until mid-morning the next day. Story 75. The year is 2003. I am a junior in high school. I had a big fight with my parents, so I grabbed my bike and ran off. I was going to go to my friend's house and stay the night, but I figured my parents would find me, so I needed other options. Not far from my friend's house was a new housing development where I planned to sleep in an unfinished house. Then I remembered a girl from the bus who I was friendly with lived nearby. I snuck up to her house and got her attention. She agreed to let me into her room in the basement. After I got inside, she warned me not to be seen because her dad would be mad. Here's where my obliviousness began. She got me some blankets, but then casually mentioned that I could come up into her bed if I got too cold. I was upset from my fight with my parents, worried about her dad, and oblivious, so I slept on the floor between the wall and the bed where I could easily hide. In the morning, she told me that everyone else had already left, so I started getting ready. Then she said she was going to take a shower, but that I could come in if I needed to. It didn't even dawn on me that if no one was home, there wouldn't be a reason for me to use that bathroom while she was in it. Needless to say, that hint flew over my head. I got ready, and then we went to the bus stop. Story 76. They told me they liked me and gave me hugs. I'm okay with it. I try to be nice and be a good person. We haven't spoken in a while since I don't have social media, so I don't know how they are doing. Story 77. In my gamer group for World of Warcraft, I was the raid leader of 40-player teams. A new player kept saying how much he had improved, working out and making good money with his new job, and he asked what I was looking for. I replied, "Ah, that's great to hear you're doing so well. I'm just looking for a tank. I don't mind carrying some players through, but lots of tanks lack experience." He responded, "I don't know if you heard me, but I'm making good money." I said, "It's fine. Even if you bought an established character with the best gear, it won't be easy to play decently. Money can't buy experience, but I can put you on our easier team if you'd like, just to help you get started." He replied, Sure, that would be great." After he logged off for the night, our voice server erupted in laughter, calling me a fool. I still didn't get it at first and insisted I had done well since the player could tank for US, though he needed some assistance. I didn't even recognize his flirting. I thought he wanted to buy his way onto our raid team, and I wasn't having that. Story 78. I was 13 when a close friend and I were talking. She mentioned that when we graduate, she would buy us a house so we could live together. She also said she would buy us a nice car when we adopted some kids, but we would have to get married in order to adopt. I thought this would be fun. Two best friends raising kids and living together. It wasn't until a few years later, when I told my husband what a nice friend she was and mentioned this conversation, that I realized she was dropping significant hints. We were both girls, and I didn't even realize she was interested in girls. My husband and I had a good laugh about how unaware I was. Story 79. A previous coworker of mine, whom I hadn't seen or worked with much, asked me to save his number in my phone after a brief interaction. He was blushing and nervously told me to text him if I needed anything. I only realized almost a year later that it wasn't the casual exchange I had thought it was, after I mentioned it in a conversation with a friend. He still avoids eye contact with me to this day. Story 80. The day my boyfriend and I became official, we slept at my house. He hinted at me sleeping next to him that night, but my brain went into overdrive, thinking I had enough room. I didn't realize it was a hint until years later. We've been together for 6 strong years now. Story 81. I was once hired to sing at a wedding, and the husband thought I was giving him hints. I ended up having a secret relationship for a year. Story 82. I was in high school in the football locker room changing when a fellow player, a really attractive guy, threw a gum wrapper my way. It landed on the top of my underwear. He came over and said he would grab it. He picked up the wrapper and touched me inappropriately. He smiled and suggested we should hang out that weekend since my parents were gone. I totally missed the hint and never hung out with him. I found out later that he was experimenting with several guys from different sports teams and came out in college. I missed my opportunity because I was clueless. Story 83, 6th grade. Hey, I like you. Sure you do. Errol. Being bullied throughout elementary school really affected my self-confidence. I perceived every positive comment as people making fun of me. Story 84. I was 10 at the final dance of the last school party. This girl literally kneeled to beg me to dance with her, but I was already interested in Ocean, and my friends were watching me. So I firmly refused and was even a bit rude to her. I still think about her from time to time. Story 85. I have a few stories to share. Let's start in high school. I was sitting on the bus when the new girl sat next to me and began talking about how skilled she was at eating lollipops. I didn't catch on at first, but she sat with me every day, becoming more explicit. By the end of the year, she said, "Just let me perform oral sex already." I thought she was joking. Later, she told me she thought I was gay. On the same bus, another girl said, "I want to perform oral sex," while grinning and handing me a piece of paper with her number on it. I thought she was joking, but we went on to become friends. Another girl and I would sit in the back of geometry class and write romantic poetry together. She asked if I could come over to her house to work on creating more poems. I told her I was busy. Her friend later told me she was convinced I was gay. In my government class, another girl told me she loved to have intimate encounters while sitting on her washing machine. She later asked if I wanted to see said washing machine. I thought that was a strange thing to show a friend. Let's move on to college. One day, I was outside smoking a cigarette and sitting on a handrail when a girl sat next to me and started rubbing against me. She stood on the handrail with one foot on my left and the other on my right. She told me to look up, revealing that she was wearing a skirt with no underwear. She suggested that I should perform oral sex on her. I panicked and went back to my room, thinking it must be a joke. Standing outside the girls' dorm, a girl I had been talking to for a while told me that she and her boyfriend had made a deal to sleep with other people at school and asked what I thought about it. I told her I didn't know if I could make the same arrangement, not understanding that she was inviting me to engage in a sexual encounter. She later said she thought I was gay. On New Year's Eve, I was at a house party as the night was coming to an end. I claimed a mattress, and another girl said she would sleep on the mattress with me. Her friend suggested she could come sleep with her on her mattress, but the attractive girl insisted she preferred my mattress. We were in bed together, and while she was rubbing against me, I thought she was trying to sleep and that I was bothering her. So I stayed as still as possible and eventually fell asleep. I have more stories, but this is enough for now. I struggled with low self-esteem for a long time. I am not gay. I certainly don't lie awake at night thinking about how foolish I was. Story 86. During work hours, my colleague asked me if I wanted to grab drinks with her friends from work, as we worked in different departments. I initially declined, but she begged me not to feel left out around new faces. I caved and agreed to meet her during our lunch break, and it was just the two of us. After getting some drinks, I asked where everyone else was. She replied that it was just us today. We laughed, shared drinks, and she looked me in the eye and said we should do this more often. I agreed but never brought it up again. We don't talk now, and I look back, thinking about how blind I was. Story 87. When I worked as an IT technician for a small company that provided contract training for corporate employees, we encouraged businesses to send their office workers to us to learn about using Microsoft Office and the internet. My boss was a tall, thin blonde woman in her mid-30s. During class sessions, we often sat around and chatted to pass the time. One day, she mentioned, "Hey, my computer at home is acting up. Do you know anything about how to clean things up to speed it up?" I replied, "Sure, not a problem." She offered me around $40 or $50 to come to her apartment early the following Saturday morning to fix her computer. I missed the implication completely and thought I was just helping my boss. When I arrived, I knocked, and a voice from inside said, "Come on in. I'm in the shower." I sat down at her computer in the living room and started working on it, still unaware of any hints. After about 30 minutes, she appeared in the living room wearing a bathrobe and holding a drink, smiling. I still didn't catch on. She offered me a drink, and I politely declined, saying, "No thanks. I'll be finished here in a few minutes, and I need to drive home afterwards." Her surprised reaction puzzled me. I believe she left and returned a minute or two later, looking slightly frustrated, and asked if there was any way she could thank me or return the favor. I still didn't understand the situation. I responded, "Nope, just pay me what we agreed on, I guess." In summary, my female boss attempted to make advances towards me under the pretense of fixing her computer. I was completely oblivious to her multiple, now obvious signals. I had never had an older woman show interest in me before, and had no idea from the beginning that she was trying to seduce a younger man. Looking back, I would have gladly accepted her advances if I had realized what was happening. I think I was between relationships at the time, and it could have been fun. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.